And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Dawg Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Reno, alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley. Episode 86 of the Dawg Talk Podcast. Everybody's here. No technical difficulties today. Dan's wearing a hat today. Do we always wear a hat, Dan?
No, we don't always wear a hat. I wear a hat sometimes. I got my hair cut, but it was a hot one today. And when I'm hot, I have a tendency to run my hands through my hair, and it looks like a complete mess. And I did not have time to go upstairs and fix it. So we are wearing a hat.
All good today. Dan, we got a kind of a loaded show compared to pretty much probably other off-season standards on other platforms. I'd say this is a loaded show. We got a lot to get through tonight. And without further being said, Dan, let's get into hot topics. We have a blind hot topic that only Dan knows about. We're going to say that one for last. Dan, hot topic number one today. What is the worst media take you can't believe that someone got paid for?
Okay, so a little bit of recency bias on this one. There are plenty that were horrific, to say the least. There are some really, really bad media takes. And obviously, we know that some of them are for clicks. But if you're familiar with the show Mike and Mike in the Morning, it was a long show on ESPN Radio, Mike Greenberg and Mike Golick. And Mike Greenberg has his own show now. And he had a take because he was talking about the Knicks are playing the Heat. Okay. Harrison, I'm going to need you on the screen for this one. The Knicks versus the Heat play what sport?
The NBA, basketball.
Okay. Where are basketball games played? Say that again. I'm sorry. You're muted or something? You're muted.
On a basketball court in an arena.
In an arena. Is that inside or outside?
Inside.
Okay. Well, Mike Greenberg said that the Miami Heat had an advantage over the New York Knicks because of the heat of playing in Florida, that it was too hot, that they were suffering because it was too hot. I mean, listen, I know there are worse takes. And obviously, like I said, recency bias. But when I heard that on the radio today, I mean, the biggest audio facepalm possible. I was like, is this man serious? Did he really just say that the Knicks were struggling to beat the Miami Heat down in Miami because of how hot it was and they weren't used to the temperature heat? Like, you've be kidding me, guys. I mean, this is the stuff that people get paid for. I mean, the second one was Kendrick Perkins saying that no white person should ever win the MVP in basketball. That was atrocious, but that was handled very quickly by JJ Redick, where he called him out for being just way off base right there, because the whole argument was that Jokic should never win the MVP. But Greeny, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, so Harrison, like I said, recency bias. And that's what prompted this in my head, is because I heard that on the radio this morning, and I could not believe that came out of that man's mouth, because he is not stupid. He does give good takes for the most part, but my goodness, are we serious? What is I'm interested to see where you go, because you do not like talking negative about anybody in the media. You love everyone. You are Mr. Nice Guy. Harrison, what made your jaw drop?
I wanted to go one direction, but it was too easy. So I'm going to go another direction. It's still college football centric, this one. I was going to go with the Georgia going 5-7. But Dan, I want to go back to take it back. I guess it was preseason before this year. Let's take it back to August, maybe September. Whatever date it was, I forget. Desmond Howard's playoff prediction was the worst of the worst that I've seen. Now, I don't like crapping on people's playoff predictions, because, hey, when you're that far out, a lot can happen. But my God, was it terrible. I mean, not even in hindsight, Dan. I believe the episode right after he made that playoff prediction, both of us were on here talking about that. Both of us. Like, it is bad.
I think I did a rant on it.
You did a whole rant on it, Dan. And I'm pulling it up now on Google Images real quick, just so we can rehash this real quick, because that is probably the worst one. And I even we both questioned whether or not he was being serious. He had 100%. Texas A&M, Pittsburgh, Baylor, and Michigan. And he had Texas A&M winning it all. Now, we know Dan didn't like this because, for one, Texas A&M was in it. Two, Texas A&M was winning it all, as I'm just messing with Dan here. But man, oh man, it looks bad now. And then the other one, Dan, was the one that was something you retweeted on Twitter today of a guy going on whatever show it was. I don't even know who he is. Don't care
Menace
to
to
see who it is.
Sports.
Menace to Sports. There we go, Dan. Saying Georgia's defense is gone. Everybody's been drafted. They're not going to be good. Georgia's dynasty's over, if it even was a dynasty. It's over, is his take.
Back to 8-5.
Yeah, gonna go 8-5. I'm like, are we doing this again? Now it's not 5-7. Okay, yeah, Georgia could go 8-5. You can go 8-5 any year, but
How?
to say Georgia's defense is gone, that they're all drafted. No. That's I don't know why we're doing it again as in the media. I don't know if it's for clicks. I don't know if the guy's being serious or if that's just been taken completely out of context. It's just a terrible take overall. Dan, hot topic number 2. This is a different one. This is a switch it up. This is a curveball here, Dan. What is your favorite cartoon that you watched as a kid?
So there's no way that you're going to actually know this, but if you had been a kid when I was a kid, you would have loved this. I love you, Harrison. I affectionately call you my nerd friend because you're very intellectual and you're to me, like, it doesn't strike me like you're not like a SpongeBob SquarePants kind of guy, right? Like that kind of humor doesn't seem.
Whoa.
Really? Are you?
I like SpongeBob. I watched it growing up, but I got a different answer.
Okay. So my favorite cartoon was a show called Mask, Mask, Mask. And it was, gosh almighty, it's been like 40 years since I watched these cartoons. But like, it was a cartoon where they had like these secret, like they were like high level operatives, right? But they all had like their special task. In their special task, they had like a vehicle that was like their weapon, so to speak. So like, the main guy, I want to say his name was Duke, but I don't think it is. But the main guy, he had a Trans Am that transformed into a helicopter or a jet or something like that. And then my favorite one was the guy with the motorcycle. And then the motorcycle could turn into like a jet ski or whatever. But like they were like kind of like G.I. Joe type guys where they would go fight crime or whatever. But Mask was my favorite cartoon growing up. I absolutely loved that. And then the other one was obviously Thundercats. I mean, Thundercats. Whoa! So those were my two. And like you kids, unfortunately, you'll never know what it was like to wake up Saturday morning with a bowl full of cereal and you got cartoons all Saturday morning. And that was like the highlight of my life. Like now it's all these other things, but I mean, on ABC, NBC, CBS, it was nothing but cartoons all Saturday morning, and that's not the way it is now. But and I know that people wax poetic about the past, but growing up in the 80s, Saturday morning cartoons were a real thing, and it was the greatest thing in my life, and they had some banger cartoons. So Mask and Thundercats were mine, and so I have no idea where you're going to go, and if you say Power Rangers, I'm logging off.
No. For the record, I've never been more lost in a show of what Dan's talking about. Never I've been more lost. I don't know what Dan either of those two shows were, but Dan, I'm gonna go with a different one here. It's not Power Rangers, so you're not gonna log off here, and it's not SpongeBob. It's not actually that recent. It's actually gonna predate probably even me. I don't know when exactly it first came out, but Looney Tunes. That was it. Whenever I'd go to my grandparents' house, Looney Tunes will always be on. Had all of them in like a disc. Probably still watches them to this day. Looney Tunes were it. That's all we would watch probably most of the day. It's a classic. I mean, I've gone back and watched a few, and I'm like, man, these hit. Like I forgot how funny these are, and like now that I'm old enough where I can kind of understand what they're hinting at there, it makes them even better. So no, Dan, you don't have to log off. I didn't even have Power Rangers on my mind, but no. Looney Tunes is the answer, and the only answer that I was going to give today. Dan, you have a blind hot topic that you didn't tell me about, so I'm going to let you take it away.
So this is based on what was floating through my head today, and I was trying to come up with two solid ones, but I wanted this to be a on the spot because if it truly is, you're going to be able to think of it like instant recall. So Harrison, my blind hot topic for you is, what is your favorite child sports memory?
Ooh. I don't know if I got one bar, so I'm a little worried here. Dan, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're fine. Just go ahead and go. Just roll
Okay.
with it, buddy.
I don't even know, Dan. There was nothing good that happened in my childhood for Georgia, for the Braves. Shoot, I mean, I'm gonna go with this because this is kind of close to my. Well, yeah, it was. Dirk Nowitzki watching that 2011 final series. Was a big Mavericks fan, big NBA fan back in the day. Don't really watch it much anymore. I believe it was probably about the year before. I was playing a game with my brother. I believe it was one of the NBA lives, and he was like, "Yo, use the Mavericks." And ever since then, Mavericks kind of been my team. But I have fond memories of watching that finals. Really fond memories of watching that game 6 where they ended the series, and still have it on Amazon. There's a documentary they made on that team. Watch it pretty much anytime I'm on a road trip. It's just really fond memories of that team. And Dirk Nowitzki is probably my all-time favorite player that I've ever watched in my lifetime. And there's not many people like him anymore in the NBA. Just that. I mean, that time period in the NBA is where it really kind of all changed. A few years after that, it all changed for, and probably it's part of the reason why I don't watch the NBA anymore is because super teams are regular, and I'm not really here for it. I don't, hey, you go get your money, you want to win, I understand it, but I ain't gonna watch something where I think something's already a done deal. Dan, what do you say?
I think I've even told you this, and I think I've said it on the show before. My favorite sports memory as a kid was when Christian Laettner hit that turnaround with 3 seconds left. And well, there was 0 seconds left when he hit it, but there was 3 seconds left on the clock. Grant Hill taking it out of bounds, playing Kentucky. Kentucky was an upstart team. They led that game, and I was on pins and needles. I was so upset. I thought Duke was going to lose. And when he hit that, it was late at night. I remember watching it downstairs on a black and white television. Because that television was black and white, not because there wasn't color, you jerks. And I remember yelling and screaming and waking my mom up, and she was all upset. But that, for me, that was the best sports memory in my childhood. And I'll never forget that moment. I mean, like, there's certain things you never forget. I mean, like the Sid slid, like that's a real thing. Like Grissom catching the ball in the outfield to secure the World Series for the Braves was a big deal. But I mean, like, I don't know why that resonates with me. I mean, obviously it's listed as one of the best plays. It was the number one player ever in college basketball, but that would hit me. And like, I mean, that was just huge. But anyway, that's enough of the hot topics. Let's get to the meat of this stuff. And I'm going to go into my rant of the week, and stay with me here. Okay. We're all adults. And, we try as hard as we can to provide for our families. And, we want to be able to support our children in every single way we can. We want them to have more, right? And we go out of our way. But money is becoming such an issue in today's climate with everything. Just inflation is through the roof. Everything costs more. It doesn't matter what status you are, lower class, middle class, upper class, like your wallet is getting tighter, right? It's more and more difficult now to have free cash. Like you just don't have the money that you used to have. Everything's real tight. And I say that to say this. So like my son, he plays AAU basketball, and you pay to play, right? I mean, because these tournaments cost money, all this stuff costs money. There's just a cost associated with it. Well, then you get halfway through the season, and they're like, okay, the first half of the season is over. Now we need more money. And it's a lot, right? That money hits you. In my daughter, for the first time in her entire life, she made All-Stars. And so we paid like $390 for pay All-Stars. And then they're like, hey, listen, got like an extra $120 out of you I got to get. And, it's just difficult. It's very, very difficult. And like, so I had to have a real conversation with my son, like, hey, maybe you may not be able to play the second half of the season because I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford it. And I'm not trying to do a pity party here, but like, everything costs money now. For these kids to have an opportunity to chase their dreams of athletic success, it costs money. The training costs money. The workouts cost money. The sports themselves cost money. Like when I played high school basketball, we didn't have to We didn't have to pay to play, but now they have to pay. They have to play football, basketball, baseball, every single one of the sports they have to pay to play. And that, this leads to, like, with something Harrison was talking about, and he wanted me to speak on it, is these camps, right? These profile camps where, like, they're like, hey, Rivals is going to be here and 247 is going to be here and we're going to hype you up and we're going to get your stuff out. Man, that's a load of crap, dude. Like, they go there to see 3 or 4 kids, and it doesn't matter how they perform versus how your kid performs or how other kids perform. They're there because, like, think about it. You got 2 or 3 scouts, right? And they're going to watch 300 kids. No, they're not. They came there to see certain people. And there was actually, my son sent me a TikTok today of a college coach, and he was like, these camps are bullshit. He's like, what you need to do is you need to go to the college camps. And you can say, well, that's self-serving. He's saying that, right? But he makes a lot of sense. He's like, go to the camp where the college coaches are the ones running the camp. They are looking for players to play inside their system. Develop that relationship. Like, you may not have the best camp, but you have an opportunity to meet these guys, develop relationships, cultivate relationships. And I know we plug Brooks a lot on the show, but one of the things that Brooks said to me a long time ago was it's about relationships. And that is the one thing I think he excels at a level that I can never get to, is relationships. How did he become so popular? How did he become so strong in the market? Is he talented? Hell yes, he's talented. Is he good at what he does? Hell yes, he's good at what he does. But he cultivates relationships. When I've had the opportunity to spend time with somebody like Brooks, the kids gravitate to him. They like him, and they are all about it, right? And you could see that. And so that college coach was talking about develop relationships with these coaches, and that's where it's going to come from. And I just – it all hit me like a ton of bricks today, because I had to call my son and tell him, like, hey, listen, we might not be able to do this. But it's not just, I mean, that's just one aspect, right? I mean, like, the quarterback training, the workouts, the speed and agility, all of that stuff costs money. And it's just so hard to pay for it right now. And it's such a shame that we live in a world now where everybody's got their hand out for money. And it's just so much of a cash grab in today's society. It's just so hard. So, again, not trying to have a pity party, but, as a parent in today's climate, you have to watch your money. It's like, it's just hard now. So, I know you don't have kids yet, Harrison, but I mean, I know you did play sports in high school. I know you played lacrosse, and I'm sure it was the same for you. I'm sure your parents, sometimes had to, I mean, they probably wanted you to have every opportunity, but at some point, is getting to the point now where you have to tell your kid no sometimes. And that's just a sad state of affairs.
Absolutely, Dan. I missed part of it. Not gonna lie, I had to switch some internet connection. So behind the scenes, that's why if you're watching on YouTube, you're getting a little visual effect here, a little visual change. We got Dan on the left now, and I'm on the right. So if you're on podcast, you don't get to experience having Dan on the left and me on the right. But yeah, Dan, it's something we talked about on the phone today. Recruiting camps is kind of the big thing in my mind that, and it's not all of them. There's just specific ones where you probably need to watch where you're putting them on, where you're paying to go. To make sure you actually get the exposure you need, because we're all here for the student athlete, and we don't want you wasting your money on something that you don't need to be wasting your money on. DG Podcast says he loves rants. Yes, we all love Dan's rants. It is actually, these rants are just Dan himself. These are everyday topics that Dan runs across or Dan's thinking about in the lead up to the show. So I love that you love them. Yeah. These are Dan's get off the lawn moments. Dan just cut the grass. He wants us off the lawn. Doesn't want any footprints. Doesn't want any shoes on there. Got to keep the lawn nice and clean. That's Dan's get off the lawn segment of the week. I'm just messing. What's it called? Dan, let's get into our last 2 topics of the night. Let's talk. We'll get into stock, and we made it. The title, college football stock market. It's what everybody's here to watch. If you clicked on the video, unless you're just here to watch me and Dan talk, which there are people that are here to watch me and Dan talk. Dan, let's talk about Kirby Smart's aspirations. This is something you brought up today on the phone, something you want to talk about. And, hey, I'm down with it because it does tie into something that we've talked about in the past. This is not just a completely yes, it's very hypothetical in a sense, but it's something that we all think it's probably worth talking about at some point. And it's, what is Kirby Smart's aspirations beyond college football? And the main thing being, last year he talked about how he almost retired before the 2021 season. almost retired, almost hung it up before he even get his national championship. He was going to say, peace out. This is not the climate that I want to work in, something that I can't do, anymore. I'm going to go ahead and hang up and move on to something else. And obviously that's just like right after the changes that came to college football and college sports in general with NIL and the transfer portal. These coaches are working completely different situations than they did just 18 months ago. Everything's changing. College football has always been known as a high stress environment, being a head coach. But I put in the show notes, it's a super high stress environment now. And who wants to work in it unless you're doing it for the kids? And at the end of the day, that's what all these coaches are doing, is they're doing it for the kids, and they want to give back, and they want to be a head football coach. So that's why they're doing it. But at some point, we all got to realize, like, hey, these people aren't going to be able to do it forever. This is something I've talked about personally, Dan, not with you, but with others. It's like, are we going to see another guy like Saban? Is there going to be a coach like Nick Saban that is going to be around as long as Nick Saban? Like, is Saban's record that he's setting now even achievable in today's environment? Personally, I don't think so. I don't know how long people are going to be around and stay in this head coaching side of college football. If anyone's getting close to doing it, it's going to be Kirby Smart. He already has 2 national championships in 8 years, in 7 years. If he gets a third, which is kind of where we're going with this, Dan, are there aspirations beyond Georgia football?
Well, it was and you got to give credit where credit's due. It's just yesterday on 680 The Fan, Chuck and Chernoff were talking about this, and Chernoff asked what would happen if Kirby were to win a third consecutive national championship. Like at some point, you're just done. You're just done with what you've done all you can do. It kind of gets boring, gets mundane. Yeah, I would hate to say that winning would ever get that way, but look at what Urban Meyer said when he was at University of Florida, is that these people get so spoiled and they expect winning at such a high level that you can't please anybody, and then you're overly scrutinized. And like Kirby was on with the morning show on 680 The Fan, and he was talking about he's like, hey, we got lucky. And like, that's the first time I've heard Kirby say that, because, it's all about the preparation. He's like, we got lucky. A guy missed the kick. If not for that, we're not playing in the national championship game. And he said, and sometimes it takes a little bit of luck. And, he's like, every championship requires a little bit of luck, and we got it. He's like, so you're telling me if the guy makes the kick, that's not a successful season? He goes, that's absolutely a successful season to me. But the fans are not going to see it that way. And it's really, you're starting to see a little bit of cracks in Kirby where he's starting to get frustrated with the amount of pressure. He always says pressure is a privilege, but so they brought up the topic, and it was just a for instance, and I ran this by Harrison and he vetoed it immediately. But they were just saying that, for instance, Bill Belichick makes $20 million a year to coach the Patriots, right? Well, what if Dallas is supposed to be really, really good this year, right? And Dallas still has a little bit of that legacy to them. What if they don't win at the level they're supposed to? Jerry Jones knows he doesn't have a whole hell of a lot of time left. What if he were to offer Kirby Smart $20 million to come coach the Cowboys? Would he do it? I don't know if he would or he wouldn't. And Harrison doesn't believe that Jerry would even make that offer. So it's all hypothetical. But what if one? And here's the one that I brought up to my friend on radio on the phone today, because he didn't like the Cowboys one either. But the Chiefs are a great product, absolutely great product. Andy Reid is getting older, and they ask him time and time again when he's going to retire. They have a quarterback that can win at an extremely high level. Is that a situation that maybe can entice him? I don't know what kind of market he wants to be in, but it's like Nick Saban is built for college, right? And he at some point decided that he needed to try the NFL. I understand it's very difficult to coach in the NFL, but you have to feel like a little bit that the work-life balance is a little bit better for NFL football coaches than it is in college. But I talked to an NFL coach one time. I coached one of his kids, and we were just having a casual conversation. And I brought up Saban and Smart being great coaches. He's like, not really. And I was like, what? And this is an NFL coach now, and he said, he was like, imagine if an NFL team got 20 first-round picks every year. He's like, they would have more talent than everybody else, and they would win. He's like, that's the equivalent of college. It's like their rosters are so stacked that they have an advantage over every single team they play. He said the reason a lot of those college guys don't want to coach in the NFL is because it is X's and O's every single week. Can you scheme things up? Can you defend schemes? Because the talent advantage, you may have it in some areas, but it's not as significant as it is in college. He's like, dude, you got quarterbacks throwing to wide receivers who don't have anybody within 20 yards of them. And we see that every Saturday, Harrison. So that's not hyperbole. Like, there are wide open dudes because one talent is so much better than the other. And we have talked so many different times about guys who are actually a really good college coach. They just don't have the talent to win, right? So, yeah, Kirby knows that, and I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm just saying, like, he has the talent advantage every single weekend. Does he want to give that up? I said the same thing about Monken. I didn't think he was going to go back to the NFL. I thought that he had a cushy life, but he was drawn right back. So I think it's a valid question to ask. I don't know if it's realistic, but it is realistic to ask the question, is that something that Kirby wants to do?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something that I think will be talked about in the future as we call it closer. Because if Georgia does win, 3 state national championships, as Dan said, as you said earlier, nobody's done it. No college coach has ever done it before, has won 3 straight national championships. Heck, haven't won 3 championships in 8 years at a program like Kirby Smart. So, hey, just something to keep in the back of the mind here. Something we want to talk about, something we thought that we could talk about and just give our take on. Do I see Kirby moving to the NFL anytime soon? No, not personally. I don't see it. I don't know anything. I don't know the guy, and he'll never give us a straight answer on that because that's just not the respectful thing to do for the University of Georgia and paint that cloud. But Dan, last topic of the day, our college football stock market edition. This is going to be a review. We're going to give us a little we're going to give them a little teaser on some programs we're buying. But let's hit our year in review from last year. Dan, we each signaled out. I did 3 programs. You had 4. That you had 2 you had 2 you bought stock in, and you had 2 you sold. I bought 2 programs. I sold a program. Dan, let's get right into it. Both you and I have made some hits here. Both you and I have hits. You probably have 2 hits on this one. When I just have 1. Dan, let's start with your buying. Who do you want to signal out first? I already know. What we want to talk about first here?
This is new, or are we going to review last year's first?
We're going to review last year's first, then we'll give our
okay.
Take.
So last year, Dan was buying USC and Ohio State, and I think, in my opinion, based on what I was trying to say in those shows, I feel like I hit a freaking home run on both of those. I mean, like USC, that was the biggest argument between me, you, and Jonathan Jeremiah. Is you said that there's no way that they could go from 5 wins or whatever it was, or 4 wins or whatever they had to be in the college football playoff. And I was like, bro, they're going to be good. Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, the talent they brought in, they're going to be really good. And they were a brain fart away from being in the college football playoff. I mean, all intents and purposes, they should have been in it. So I feel like I hit on that one. Ohio State, kind of low-hanging fruit. I just felt like they were a powerhouse team, and they were going to be right back in it. And they were a missed field goal at the stroke of midnight away from being national champions, because they would have beat the hell out of TCU just like we did. And then the 2 programs I sold on, Georgia Tech, they were a clown show, and they continue to be a clown show. And Miami was the one that I got some heat on the sell, because everybody told me about how incredible that coaching staff was. Bro, they were trash. That coaching staff is trash, and I am happy that they did not win. So I felt like I had a really good buy and sell from last year, and I don't want any take backs. I'm good. I'm good. And Harrison, you did pretty good too.
Dan, I thought I could have done a little bit better. I didn't have 2 home runs. I will say, you almost did. I mean, you basically had 4 home runs. I probably went 2 for 3. If I'm giving myself credit, the programs I bought was Oklahoma, and Tennessee. Oklahoma lost me a lot of money. If I actually bought stock in Oklahoma, boy, would I have been wrong. Would have lost a lot of money. But I think my other buy and my sell would have made up for it. I think Tennessee was the home run. the home run of all home runs. We were on that train pretty much all offseason. Tennessee's going to be good. They have something building there. Brought a lot of talent back from the year before. Showed a lot of promise. Josh Heupel's first year, and I mean they showed out for all intents and purposes, like USC, similar to UFC. If it wasn't for a brain fart against South Carolina, and they didn't lose that game like they did, and I know they're going to talk about, hey, Hendon Hooker got hurt. If Hendon Hooker doesn't get hurt, we win that game. Well, no, you probably don't. Even with Hendon Hooker, you're still down by 30 to South Carolina. So I won't let that slide. But all intents and purposes, Tennessee took that next step last season, pretty much about where we thought they would be. Dan, to their credit, they beat Alabama. I had that as a loss. I had Georgia as a loss. I didn't see them losing South Carolina. But I will say that's pretty much a home run there. And then Oklahoma, boy, were they a train wreck. Bought a little bit too much into where their offense was going to be. Thought Britt Venables was going to be able to turn that defense around and get it, respectable in year one. But that thing went off the train really easily. Got shut out by Texas in the Red River Shootout. Not a good year for Tennessee, or for Oklahoma, excuse me. Program sold. Clemson. I'm not changing it. I'm still out on Clemson. I ain't changing Clemson. I ain't buying Clemson stock. They're going to have a good year this year for me to buy their stock. They didn't look good in 21, Dan. They didn't look good last year. Ever since Trevor Lawrence left, they just haven't looked the same. And, hey, that's a transcendent player there, Trevor Lawrence. We all know it. He was the number 1 draft pick. But we've seen other teams reload. We've seen it. Alabama reloads. Georgia's reloaded. Heck, even Ohio State went from Justin Fields to C.J. Stroud. They reloaded after a transcendent talent in their program. Clemson hasn't found it, and until they find it, I ain't changing it. Dan, anything you want to buy this year? We didn't put it on the notes. I didn't put it on the notes. Dan, any program you want to buy or any program you're adding to that selling list?
So, I think I would keep USC still on it. Ohio State, obviously, you can't take them off. They're going to be great, too. Another, like Texas A&M, I should have had them on my cell because I hated them last year, and I made a mockery of them every time they were in the news. I just can't. They're never relevant. Like when has Texas A&M ever really mattered? Right? Like when have they mattered? They're a story every once in a while, but they don't matter. But for me, adding to the buy here, listen, there is a team that I cannot get my hand on. Like I want to put them on my sell list, but they could be a buy list, and it's Texas. Because I don't know. Like there are people out there trying to say that Texas has the best roster in the country from top to bottom. I don't buy that for a second.
Urban Meyer said that.
Yeah, Urban Meyer. So yeah, he said they have the best roster in the country. So if that's the case, then they're supposed to be a Final Four team, and I don't see that. So I guess I would put them on my sell. Like I don't see them being a playoff team, but like I'm not 100% sure on exactly how I want to take that. And then Colorado, like if you're looking realistically, like they won 1 game last year. If Deion wins 4 games, like that's actually a significant improvement. But he's acting like he's going to go in there and walk the dog on people. So I don't know how to react to that either. So I'm not. Oh, that's a hot take, Zach. Look at that. Texas beats Bama. Listen, and I know this is like we try to like hate on Alabama when we get a chance, but dude, I don't know. Like I don't think Bama's going anywhere, and that recruiting class they brought in is pretty ridiculous. And they, I know that they supposedly have really bad quarterback problems, but they're going to get that figured out. I think Bama is going to be right there. LSU, I think, is going to be right there. I'm weak in this. I'm weak in this right now. But sell in Florida. They are trash. So, and I think Kentucky's had a chance to lose like 5 games in a row. So I don't know. I think I'll keep my list pretty much the way it is. Probably add Colorado to the sell list. I don't know. But like I said, like if they win 4 games, it's a 400% improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, you brought up a team I didn't even think about that I'm going to add to my buy list. I'm going to add a couple here, Dan. I'm going to add a couple here. I'm going to add a few to my selling list. Dan, first off, we're going to start with the hot take here. Maybe a hot take. Maybe some people agree with it. I'm going to go ahead and sell my Tennessee stock. I'm going to get out on Tennessee right as they peaked. I'm going to get out when they peaked because I think they're about to hit a downfall here. I think they're about to go down. They're about to lose me some money. So I'm going to get out on them when they're selling that high. I'm selling Tennessee. They had a great year last year. They had a lot coming back. They don't have much coming back this year. Lost Hendon Hooker, lost Cedric Tillman, lost Jalen Hyatt. Where are they at defensively? We don't know. They lost I believe it was their leading pass rusher, Byron Young, off to the NFL. Lost a lot of talent. Darnell Wright, their starting right tackle. I'm not buying it this year. I'm going to get out on them when they're still high, when they still have maybe some money here, Dan. Tennessee and selling list. Dan, I'm actually going to buy stock in LSU, and I'm selling stock in Alabama for similar reasons to what you just said, except I don't know if they're going to figure out the quarterback situation there. There were rumors that they called around elsewhere, Dan. There were rumors on Twitter that Alabama made a call to Tyler Van Dyke, the Miami quarterback, who ended up staying at Miami. Didn't go to Alabama. So I don't know. Bama's interesting to me. I got to see another year. Are they going to put together receiver, Dan? Receiver was a weak link last year. They didn't look great last year at receiver. And hey, I guess they're still reeling from not having their best two receivers. And I don't know if they have their two best receivers this year. We're going to see there. They also lose Bryce Young, who we all know Bryce Young, probably the reason they beat Auburn the last two or in 21. And I mean, he saved them in so many games. I got to see their quarterback room. I got to see how they do. But I'm selling Alabama and buying LSU. So add Tennessee to the selling list, Alabama to the selling list. But I'm going to buy LSU stock. Hey, I'm not going to say – I don't know. It's tough, Dan, because they're bringing a lot back. They're in a similar situation to Tennessee this past year where Brian Kelly had a good first year, exceeded expectations. Now he brings back a lot of that talent. I believe the only major loss offensively was Kayshon Boutte, who really wasn't a big factor last year. Had some questions about him throughout the season. So, hey, they put up 30 points on Georgia's defense. Now, whether that's garbage time or not, I don't know. But I really like their quarterback room. You got that Garrett Musmeyer kid who looked great against Georgia, looked pretty good against Georgia. And you also have Jaden Daniels, who didn't look quite as good, but he's looked good in other games. So I'm going to buy LSU stock. And that's going to top it off for me, Dan. Basically, my hot take is I'm going to try and get some money out of Tennessee while I still can, and I'm definitely going to go ahead and put Alabama kind of on that same trajectory that I thought Clemson's heading into. So there you go. Clemson, Tennessee, Alabama, sell that stock while you can, and go buy LSU while you can. Dan, I'm kind of like you here. I don't know where to put Texas. They're going to win. They're going to win 8 games. They're going to win 5 games. They're going to win 10 games. They're going to upset Georgia in the Sugar Bowl again. Like, there's no telling. There's really no telling.
Texas is just I don't know how to handle them. And then Texas A&M, like, can they be bad enough to finally get Jimbo fired? I mean, his buyout is so high. Like, all right, so first of all, he brought in Petrino. How did I miss this? He brought in the biggest snake in the history in college football to be his offensive coordinator? Are you shitting me right now? Like, you got Jimbo and Petrino on the same coaching staff? Bro, I am so out on those two. Oh, my God. Like, I mean, I don't know if you could put them on the sell list because they're kind of shit anyway. But, like, oh, my God. Like, that made my stomach turn.
Here's the thing, Dan, for me, and it's something I've talked about with other people. I don't know if I mentioned on here, but Clemson made the hired offensive coordinator that I thought Texas A&M should. Garrett Riley should have been Texas A&M's new offensive coordinator. That is the guy they should have targeted. He had a good year at TCU, runs the same system, runs a pretty similar system to what his brother did up there in USC. That should have been the hire for Texas A&M, and they failed. I don't follow A&M. I don't cover A&M, so I really don't know them that much. But I can tell you, if Bobby Petrino was your number one option, I'm out. I am out. If they hired Garrett Riley, I probably would have bought some. I don't know if I'd buy some stock, but I wouldn't be sitting here today saying, yeah, I'm totally out on them. That would have been a promising hire. And heck, I want to see where this Garrett Riley thing goes, because if he performs well with, hey, Clemson recruits well. Probably not at the level they used to back in the day, a few years ago, but they still got a talented roster. So he's going to be playing with some really good weapons, and he's going to try to put that thing together there. But Yeah, I'm out of A&M. I'm not going to put on the sell list. Just seems like low-hanging fruit here. Dan, anything else to add before we wrap up the show?
I'm good, man. I'm talked out.
Talked out. Hey, Dan's talked out on the Dawg Talk Podcast. That's what we're here for. Zach over here in the comments saying Tulane greater than USC. I forgot about that. The Cotton Bowl was rough for USC. Guys, make sure to tune in next Wednesday at 7:30 here on the Dawg Talk Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe. Guys, we're on the road to 100 subscribers. Very, very minimal right now, saying 100, but hopefully in a year, we can be saying a lot more than 100. So make sure to like and subscribe. Rate and review if you're listening to the podcast. With that being said, make sure to follow Dan Kiley on Twitter at DanKiley3. Follow me at Harrison Reno. Episode 86 of the Dawg Talk Podcast.